Welcome to Spirit Gym. Strap in today for a wild ride that begins with a rattlesnake bite and continues into an exploration of life, death, and transformation. Paul is joined by Kyle Kingsbury, former UFC fighter, wellness and transformational coach, and host of the Kyle Kingsbury podcast. Together they dissect some of the most pressing questions, such as how do unresolved trauma patterns shape the body? What role do plant medicines and breathwork play in rewiring the brain? Can you biologically recondition your nervous system to move from survival into creativity? They also discuss the anatomy of corruption in professional sports, as Kyle reveals the inner workings of a $375 million lawsuit against the UFC that he fought for and won in defense of fighter rights, and how psychological and financial suppression was systematically built into fighter contracts. Paul and Kyle talk about Kyle's work with Fit for Service, the birth of new visions, and what it really means to live in alignment with your soul's calling. If you enjoy this episode, you can explore Kyle's new ventures, such as the upcoming Rising Retreat at therisingretreat.com, where you can save $500 using the promo code Chek10. Before we dive in, we'd like to say thank you for listening, as this podcast would not be possible without you, our subscribers and followers. We'd also like to thank our premier sponsors, Organifi, Bioptimizers, Paleo Valley and Wild Pastures, and our newest sponsors, Correct Life and Peak Tea. You'll hear their special offers and discounts throughout this episode, or you can visit the show notes page at paulchek.com/podcast.
Oh, great spirit! Kyle Kingsbury, my buddy's in the house.
Yeah, buddy.
Nice to see you.
So good to see you. We've already had quite an adventurous run here in the couple of days we've been here.
Hey, that's a story. Wow. Well, I'll tell it the brief version. Kyle arrived, was it yesterday, right?
Yeah, yesterday morning.
And him and I are getting ready for a beautiful ceremony together, which we try to do is, at least once a year, maybe?
Once a year, yeah. Maybe every two at the latest.
Yeah. And we do the deep dive that's only good for the big wave surfers. So we do a lot of preparation, and I was so excited to show him how I have the Vogel cut crystals and gemstones and everything set up in the water charger to turn that medicine on something beautiful. And little did I know, I had a visitor in the water charger, and it was dark in there, as it always is, because there's no windows and it's made of stone. And I didn't want Kyle to hit his head because it tapers like a cone. So I was showing him from the door side where you can see, and I said, here, put your arms around it like this. And I walked around to the other side because I have the medicine circled in 3 and 5 gallon water bottles because it amplifies the charge going through the crystals.
Vogel cut, yep.
And I stepped on a rattlesnake, and it bit me. And I'm like, oh, my God. And as you can imagine, it was, I'm like, oh, Jesus, this is not the kind of time I plan to spend with Kyle. And
First thing, right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. And I have had, many friends and acquaintances bit by rattlesnakes. So I've heard the story over and over again, and I know it's pretty gnarly and can kill you. And you usually got 90 minutes before your diaphragm's paralyzed, so you can't just sit around and fart around. So the first thing I did is I walked outside in the sun because I felt something sharp, like needles going into my toe. So I got out in the sun and lifted my leg up, and sure enough, my toe was bleeding, and it had a puncture wound in it. And then there was another tiny one with a little spot of blood on it. So I had to take a minute to kind of calm myself and get connection with my soul, which is hard to do when you're in a buzz state like that. Then I realized I needed to calm down. So I went to the cold plunge and stuck my foot in the cold plunge and let it get till it was numb, just to kind of try to contain the venom. While I was talking to Shervine on the phone that you thankfully called, because I was buzzing so much, I'm like, I got to call Shervine, and you did it for me, which is thank you, because Shervine's been bitten 3 times, so he knows the ropes. So he was asking me key questions and stuff, but we called the paramedics. My soul said, you better get to a hospital in case you need the anti-venom, because it's not something you want to juggle, risk, gamble with. So we had the paramedics come first, and they marked the spot where the
Fight was.
Where the
Fangs?
The fangs, yeah, I'm brain farting. Fangs went in, and then they have a little system of drawing lines so they can see how red it's getting and how much the swelling is. And my toe had swelled up just a little bit. I got cotton mouth pretty bad for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 911 operator said, don't drink water. And I found myself like my tongue sticking to the roof of my mouth, when you're really bone dry, kind of like when you wake up in the morning and you're dehydrated.
Yeah.
So I knew something was going on because I don't ever have cotton mouth. But long story made short, Kyle followed the ambulance to the hospital to hang out with me, and just in case I needed something or just to be there and channel his life force into me. And I waited, and I said to them, don't give me anti-venom unless you're sure I need it, because they said it's $15,000 a vial. So my copay on my insurance is $7,000. So either way, it's going to be a big bite. And I got other things to spend $7,000 on. But, I stayed calm, and, they had me all hooked up in the ambulance, and my heart rate was staying right at 61, and my blood pressure was normal. And the paramedics like, aren't you nervous right now? I said, well, I've been bit by a rattlesnake, so it's certainly a concern, but I know getting my heart rate up and, getting freaked out is not going to do me any good. So I'm just kind of meditating. So I hung out in the hospital. The doctor checked me, every half an hour or so. And interestingly enough, the swelling went down and it didn't spread. So he said, well, it doesn't look like you're going to need the antivenom. You got very lucky, because you could clearly see there's a hole in my toe. It was bleeding.
It was bleeding.
Yeah. And so 2 hours in the hospital, and I said, I'm ready to go. I'm not getting worse. I'm getting better. And so that, they wanted to IV and all this other stuff and rack the bill up. But I said, no. And so I walked out and said, Kyle, let's go, baby.
Let's go. Big hug. Let's start the day.
Let's get back to our plan. But, it scared the shit out of the kids. And, of course, the girls were worried. And it gave me a real sense of grace. I really felt I'd been blessed, because, those are not the kinds of things you just toy with. And I'm very rattlesnake aware. We have a lot of them here. I probably have to carry anywhere from 5 to 7 of them away from the house or the playground, in the season after spring, when it comes. Usually in March, they start coming around. And I found it takes them a while to kind of realize you can't come near the house or something's going to happen to you. So there's that first month or two where you've got to really keep your eyes peeled. But they tend to hang out by the water charger. I think they like the energy over there.
Oh, yeah.
And I've only had one come into the water charger. And I was just so excited that you were here and to show you my configuration, that I was too busy expressing myself to, really pay attention to where my feet were. But I think, coming home and having the kids so happy to see daddy was nice, because it woke them up to the fact they really have to pay attention around here. And I don't know, it gave me a lot of chance to thank God for taking care of me, because that was just a little too close for comfort.
Yeah, put me into a deep state of gratitude.
Yeah,
and just the recognition that life is, it's short, and it can happen at any fucking day, any minute.
The angel of death is never more than a breath away. Like, it reminded me yesterday. But the interesting thing too, I don't know if I shared this with you, but once I realized I've definitely been bitten, the thought crossed my mind, I could die. But inside of myself, I said, you know what? If it's time to go, it's time to go. I've fucking poured my heart into the world. I have no regrets. I don't want to leave my kids, and I don't want to leave my family and all that, but I have not missed out on life. I've really fucking done it, So it was interesting because it kind of gave me the sense that when death comes, I'll be okay with it. Because I was really facing that, looking the diamond back in the eye after it's bitten you is an interesting experience. And Kyle and I have the snake that bit me in a bucket, and it died. Just it looked like it had been injured before it got me, because where I stepped on it was already flattened.
Yeah.
And so
entrails were already hardened from being outside its body for a while.
Yeah, and it didn't rattle because the tail end of it looked like it got crushed, and the girls thought maybe that was the one Freddie had tried to catch but couldn't successfully catch it. So we're going to give the rattlesnake a burial after the podcast today, just to kind of close that before we go into ceremony, because I don't feel good about going into ceremony with that beautiful snake in a bucket,
Yeah.
I want to just say goodbye and say thank you. So that's my update, and that's Kyle's arrival to visit the angel of death before we go into the deep dive. But it's been a while since you were here. I went and visited you how long ago? 6 months ago?
It was like 6 months, I think.
6 months ago, and had a great time seeing your farm and your new house.
Showing the house, yeah.
Your beautiful jiu-jitsu area in your house, and we had a good podcast together. But, I know that you're in a transition. Fit for Service is in a transition, so I'd love to have you share what you've been up to lately and kind of where you're going in your life right now.
Yeah, it's been a huge shift. I don't think I've been without salary, steady pay since I had no steady pay in fighting, rather. So that wasn't the case then. But it's been 8 years since I've had a big change. 7 years in six years in Fit for Service, and then 2 or 3 before that with On It. But it's been really good. And I have the fortune of, this UFC class action lawsuit being a part of that has given us the grace to be able to not rush and hit the panic button and actually sit and participate in the Year of the Hermit.
Yeah, you were just telling me all about that. Like, somehow I never knew that you were involved in all that. Maybe if you want to give a short synopsis of what that is, because I don't think a lot of people realize the inside story of the UFC and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. Something I've been a part of for about 11 years. Bear was in the womb when we started. And it was Kung Lee who led the case. So it's Lee et al., right? But it was 6 of us that actually participated in it. Kung Lee, Brendan Vera, John Fitch, Javi Vasquez, Nate the Rock Corey, and myself. And so for the last 10, 11 years, anytime they had mediation, we were there. Anytime they had a court thing, we were there. We'd fly to Vegas for it, go to New York, go to wherever they needed us to meet. And it's been a lot of work towards it. They're our lawyer team who's, going to take a good chunk, as they should, because everything's come out of their own pocket thus far for the last 11 years.
Wow, that's a lot.
Millions of dollars. They spent over $1 million on our Harvard economist who's going to come in and actually was able to put the pictures together and the puzzle together of how much money the UFC's made above and beyond all the other major sports, based on comparing to the other major sports that have free market, free agency, and the ability to trade and move freely. So the long and short of it is, we had a good case proving that they were through monopoly. They utilized monopsony power to artificially lower our wages. So something we just found out. I had no idea. I just knew I wasn't getting paid much when I was fighting, but we were able to find through disclosure that on any given fight card, the highest they were paying out was 18 to 22% of the revenue. So compare that to the NFL, MLB, NHL, any of the 4 major sports. It's about 50-50 owners, 50-50 players. In boxing, thanks to the Muhammad Ali Act, is about 15 to 20% go to the promoters, and 80 to 85 go to the fighters.
What was the Muhammad Ali Act? I never heard of it.
The Ali Act was a big one. And this makes the story a little longer, but it's actually worth noting. The Fertittas who bought the UFC were involved in boxing along with Senator McCain. And, it's an interesting thing because McCain was the guy who called MMA human cockfighting, no holds barred stuff. There's no rules. And he was like the guy that basically got it taken off of cable TV. No one could watch it. You'd have to go rent a VHS at Blockbuster Video or the Warehouse in order to see these old fights. And he did that. And, the UFC was really struggling because they lost all their revenue. The sport couldn't grow. They were suffocating it. And then, the Fertittas come in, who were buddies with McCain. They buy it for $1 million. And from that point on, systematically started to purchase anybody else that was worthwhile. So they bought Strikeforce, they bought Pride, they bought the largest competitors. And along with that, took those fighters that would come and engulfed them. And with that, they became the only show in town. So that was our argument. We should have had at least 30% more than we were made if we're comparing ourselves to other big sports. But this Muhammad Ali Act was a big one. It says, amongst other things, the promoter can't determine their own rankings. The UFC does that. Mm-hmm. The promoter cannot pick their own title fights. UFC does that. So if they want, they can make the champ fight number 6 instead of, in boxing, it's the number 1 ranked contender has the first shot at the title. If he's hurt or can't do it, then he goes to number 2. If that person can't do it, then he goes to number 3.
That seems logical.
There's an order there, right? When you think about the NFL, imagine if the NFL, and this is the equivalent, if the NFL behaved like Dana White in the UFC, they'd say, hey, Pittsburgh, you did great this year, you're undefeated, but we really want to see a championship game with New York versus San Francisco. Sorry, right? San Francisco is a bigger market. New York's a bigger market. This makes more sense financially for us to have these guys go for the Super Bowl championship. That's exactly what they were doing.
Yeah,
and beyond that, and every fighter has their stories. We never got to a free agency piece because if we had one fight left on our contract, they'd force us to sign again. And if we didn't sign another contract for pennies on the dollar in an attempt to go somewhere else, they'd sit you on the bench. They did it to Andrei Arlovsky, former heavyweight champ. They kept Randy Couture tied up in the prime of his career as heavyweight champion, BJ Penn, so many of the greats, not just, guys like me, there was maybe a mid-carder. Everyone has a story like that. And so we settled for $375 million. Not what we wanted, but they say in a settlement, no one's happy. So I guess we're kind of correct there. And that's going to cover some of the lost wages. And then there's an ongoing court battle because you have to cap stuff with dates. So like my fight career ended in 2014. From when we started to 2017, that was that one. Now from 2018 or 2017 onward till now. And that's really to try to change the sport. We want to change contracts and make free agency available to fighters.
Enzymes are one of the most important things we can use to supplement our diet. Very few people have normal levels of digestive enzymes. It's extremely common to be digestive enzyme deficient because so many people are eating cooked foods, processed foods, packaged foods, etc. The best digestive enzymes I've ever found are Masszymes by Bioptimizers. And one of the things I like about them is not only are they the most advanced technology for how they're produced, the science behind them, but I take them on an empty stomach every morning and every night as proteolytic enzymes to help clean my body. So I've got Wade here, who's the formulator of these enzymes, to tell us how do they work as digestive and proteolytic enzymes, because today I think we really need to be supplementing with high quality enzymes. So Wade, what's unique about Masszymes?
Well, one of the interesting things is undigested protein is one of the biggest contaminants that cause problem for people, whether it's in their blood or inflammatory conditions or even impairing recovery. And it's quite common amongst athletes who have high protein diets, interesting enough, who are looking to add recovery, but they're not breaking down their protein effectively. And that was my case way back in the day as a former bodybuilding champion. So we set about cultivating and developing an enzyme formulation that handled all of the amino acids in a pH range from 2 to 12, as well as providing an assortment of assistant enzymes. In other words, it doesn't just break down protein, it handles carbohydrates, it handles fats, it handles fibers, a variety of different things, and they work synergistically together to make sure that you can break down just about any food and digest it properly. Now, when you talk about the difference between enzymes, there's digestive enzymes and systemic enzymes. Systemic enzymes such as like nattokinase or serrapeptase. Well, they don't help break down digestion, but they can break down inflammation or inflammatory conditions, undigested proteins, or scarring tissue inside the body. Well, it turns out when you take Masszymes on an empty stomach, it works exactly the same way. It will go into the bloodstream and now works as a systemic enzyme, reducing inflammation, accelerating recovery times. Matt just tore his Achilles tendon and made a full recovery after surgery within a few weeks, which they expected for many months. He was taking as many as 100 a day. Now, I'm not suggesting people do that, but this was an extreme condition. And the bottom line is Masszymes is great for recovery, for cleaning up undigested proteins in the system, as well for digesting just about any meal. If this isn't the best digestive enzyme or systemic enzyme that you've ever taken, you get your money back. That's the Bioptimizer guarantee.
Spirit Gym with Paul Chek listeners can get 10% off their purchase of Masszymes by going to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL10 at checkout. You can choose from 3 different sizes, and in addition, Bioptimizers always have special bonus gifts and additional savings when you get multiple bottles. So go to bioptimizers.com/Spirit Gym and use the code PAUL10 to check out Masszymes with 10% off.
Well, I'm still confused. The Muhammad Ali Act, why is it called that?
Oh,
Did
yes,
he have something to
sorry,
do with that?
thank you. I did not finish the Ali Act. The Ali Act was done in a way so it would eliminate a promoter's ability to choose their own title fights. It would eliminate their ability to pick their own rankings, right, out of a hat. Well, this guy's better than that guy. Like, it had to be a third party that was not in with them, okay? And there's a number of other things the Ali Act did that I'm just spacing on, but could go a long list if you want to look it up, on how it makes the sport fair. And Ali intelligently knew this should apply to all combat sports.
Mm-hmm.
Boxing is a combat sport. Kickboxing is a combat sport, right? And so they listed all those. This was before the UFC and mixed martial arts had came on board. So before the Fertittas purchased the UFC, they called their buddy McCain and they said, make sure mixed martial arts is not considered a combat sport.
Well, what the hell would it be then?
Right? That's the fucking biggest head scratcher on earth. How they could make that happen is beyond me, because there's no sport. I mean, you can argue about what's the most challenging sport, or, you know, what is the greatest battle or test of one man's will, and say maybe there's something else that's not MMA, but you couldn't say MMA is not a combat sport.
That would be ridiculous.
It is, and that's exactly what they've done. So because MMA is not a combat sport, that's allowed the UFC to become a monopoly and do all the fucking things they've done. And, you know, a lot of people say like, oh, if it turned into boxing, that'd be the worst, because, you know, then, you know, you'd have some guy from another organization fighting another guy. And it's like, no, then we would have seen Fedor versus Randy Couture. We would have seen champ versus champ,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, there'd be multiple belts, but we'd actually see the best fights.
Yes.
And not the promoters, but a third party would be determining that based on success and skill set. What does that ranking actually look like? It'd make the game way fair. It would also spread the wealth. So you wouldn't have one company controlling everything, but you'd have multiple, you know, and that helps the fighters, because in order to get good fighters, then you want to pay them more.
Mm-hmm.
Hence the skew in boxing, where 80% of the revenue goes to the fighters.
So I'm assuming this is because Muhammad Ali got jerked around a lot by.
Oh, he was fucked by Don King long before Tyson did.
Yeah.
And many others, right? And so he really did a lot for the sport of boxing, but for all combat sports. That was his goal.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd love to see the Ali Act apply to mixed martial arts. And that's something we want to work towards, that's separate from the lawsuit that's going on now. But at the very least, we want to see contract changes that matter. And, you know, that's where the work continues. And I'll be a part of that. That $375 million sounds like a lot to a lot of people, but it's spread between 1,200 fighters over the however many years the lawsuit went, and it's based on how much you made. And for those that are curious, my average pay per fight was 10 grand a show and 10 grand to win.
Wow.
So if I won all 3 fights in a year, which is pretty tough but doable, that's $60,000 a year before I pay my coaches, before I pay my management, before any training costs are accrued, before I pay the IRS, before I pay California 13.3% state income tax, like you name it, right? You're
That's
walking away
poverty,
with
man.
less than a teacher's salary
Yeah.
in some places. And for sure, you know, you're paying more than half that is gone before you've even made it. So thankfully there's bonuses and things like that, but that was pennies on the dollar too. You know, I went fight of the night, broken eye. I can't fight for a year.
Yeah.
Here's an extra 40K. Cool. So I just put my ass on the line for 60 grand, you know?
Yeah.
And I understand a lot of people would say like, well, you signed up for it. And it's like, there's not many other options. If you want to fight for the best, if you want to be at the highest level, you know, then there's only one show in town. So anywho, the long end of that is I have a lot of hope that we can change the sport. I'd never want my son to go into it the way that it is ever.
No,
And
it's
I
amazing.
certainly don't want my kid to get hit in the face, but there's stuff to be learned. Fighting taught me so much. It's what brought me to you. It's what got me into health and wellness. And so yeah, that's allowing me to float through this year and actually really sit, in the cave, in the hermit cave, and develop a new community. What do I do? That Fit for Service is gone. What kind of events do I want to run that are smaller and more immersive, where we can actually get hands-on with people and change how they think, how they move, and how they operate in the world? And so I'm creating a couple things here that I'm really excited about. But I learned so much in Fit for Service because, I was there with Aubrey from the jump, right?
Maybe just for those that don't know what Fit for Service is, you could give an overview of that, because I'm sure a lot of people listening, my podcast is now listened to in 171 countries. So a lot of those people may not have a clue what Fit for Service is. Of course, I do, but I'd like the listeners to be able to kind of follow the flow and understand the context of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Aubrey had a beautiful vision at Don Howard's in Spirit Quest in Peru before Don Howard passed on to the next place. And the vision was, how can we build a community with people and teach them all the secret sauce that we've given to ourselves that have helped us become better and better humans and enjoy life more and more? How can we translate that to people through teaching and through experience? And what are the things that crack people open that we can do legally? Because obviously plant medicine is a different scenario, and some people aren't ready for it. So the idea was get 150 people together and put them through challenges, things that open them up, ecstatic dance, holotropic breath work with some of the best practitioners in the world, and any other teachings we really want to layer. So each year in the 6 years, Aubrey would really hone and sit with the other coaches, myself, Eric Godsey, and Caitlin Howe, and he'd talk about what we wanted to teach. And then so trimester by trimester, we would start to peel layers from different avenues. One year we talked about the Song of Songs from the Book of Solomon, which is a lot on your I, we, all model.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like that was the progression, right? From I, we, all, and how we take care of each of these sections, right? So that was fun. And each of us coming from different backgrounds would teach in our own way. And people got a lot from that. And in the final year, we were actually going deeper in that, where we would teach something fit, right? So I taught physically fit because I'm the most physically fit. That makes the most sense, even though I'm like you. I think that's important, but want to teach other shit too, in addition to that. Yeah. So I got kind of pigeonholed into that, but it was still rad. I helped so many people. I've helped people get pregnant. I've connected, like yourself. If I'm not the expert in the subject, I know the expert in the subject. Yeah. Right. So I've connected people to Dr. Nathan Riley, the holistic OBGYN, is a close friend of ours. I got to meet on your 60th birthday.
I love Nathan.
And many others, right? Gut specialists like Dr. Michael Ruscio, and just really helping people solve the shit that they haven't been able to solve while still hitting the meetups and things like that, which have been great. We've had somewhere between 120 to 200 people at every event that we've done for 6 years. And coaching people in that respect has been phenomenal as well, because, our first year was a lot different than how we finished. The kinds of people we were attracting were a lot different. We had a lot of bros in the first year that were just trying to get ripped and make money. That's what they thought of as on it, right? I want to be ripped. I want to be a CEO like Aubrey and make all this money.
Right.
And by the end there, I'll talk about Will Tagle as one of the mentors I learned from. He's written 8 books, PhD in psychology, PhD in physics, unique guy before he passed away. And in his book, Walking with Bears, he has this really cool story about his mentor, Bearhart Williams, sitting by a cottonwood and just putting a beam of golden light. He said, and this is before Will Tagle had gotten into any sort of indigenous teachings or any sort of altered states, no plant medicine, handful of vision quests, but he wasn't tapped in the way that he was when he finished his life at 82. And so he's looking at him from a modern day psychologist perspective, like, fuck, this guy's lost his marbles. And the guy just sits there. He goes, I'm going to put this golden thread out. People will come out of here. They would have these conferences, psychology conferences, where they'd get together with all the who's who in academia, and they'd bring in an indigenous person locally to have like a lunch special with somebody from the local. And this guy came in at 8:30 and everybody's wigging out. He's not on till lunch. He's not on till lunch. Tell him he has to leave. He goes and parks it by the tree, and he tells Will, I'm going to sit here and put out the golden thread, and when the line forms, you're going to help me. And Will was like, ain't nobody going to fucking come here with some magical golden thread. And sure enough, hundreds of people leave the conference and line up in this big line. And that was Will's first initiation as an apprentice with him. But that story, and it gets me with emotion, because that's the magic sauce that exists at all times if we open our awareness to it.
Yeah.
Right. And
So just so I'm clear, who is it that was creating the gold? Is it golden thread?
yeah, the golden thread. He called it the golden thread. That was Bearhart Williams, who's Will Tagle's teacher. Dr. Will Tagle is who I'm talking about.
Okay.
But that thread, that analogy came to me after year 1 in Fit for Service. And I started using that. And I made that prayer through Fit for Service that we would start to attract our people.
Right.
And year after year, that became just so apparent. It was mind-blowing to see the type of people we were attracting. Just phenomenal people. Some were coaches, some weren't. Many parents, young people, old people, everywhere in between. Gay, straight. We even had a trans guy come through. It was awesome. Just everyone from every walk of life came to us. And it was phenomenal getting to participate in that. The business side of it was a little hairy, and that ultimately led to, after On It sold, we got the farm, and I've been working on that with Aubrey, and that was a space for us to grow our own food, but also to host events. And Aubrey, put a lot of pokers in the fire after the sale of On It to continue to grow and to do different things. And ultimately, with as much time and effort and energy as Fit for Service took, he pulled away. So, he's on to different things and still remains one of my very best friends and somebody I still work with closely. Eric Godsey is now kind of running Fit for Service, mostly digitally and different offerings there.
So it is going.
It's still alive, yeah, but and it's completely different, right? Same name, but it's completely different without Aubrey.
Right.
And so I'm still doing some stuff with them. I'll teach online and whatnot, but mostly I've been given the opportunity to create. What do I want to create? What in the ways do I want to teach? What is the community that I want to build? And how do I want to work with people when I get them face to face? So it's been really cool. I've had the affordance from the UFC money to actually sit in the cave and really plan this out and work with it. And it's been a really cool ride getting to look into that and try to see how do I want to work this with everything I've learned from the last 6 years with the right people, putting out that golden thread again and creating something new.
Sounds very exciting. Well, that's quite a journey that you've had with Fit for Service. And I think a lot of people gained a lot and you learned a lot. So, that's sort of opening up a new chapter in your life. I'm curious, what have you learned about how to do this and, what people need, and how does what you learn and what you feel people need now play into your new vision? So what did you learn? What do you think people need based on your assessment of the world and what's going on? And how does that ultimately paint your new vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, when we finished our final year, we had physically fit, mentally fit, emotionally fit, spiritually fit. We had all these different fit classes people could say yes to or no to, and form little cohorts and little smaller groups where people could actually become closer to each other before the event. And that worked really well. But to me, even in marketing, physically fit, if I think of emotionally fit or mentally fit or spiritually fit, as you know, all things move through the body.
Yep.
You're not going to be emotionally fit if you're walking around in fucking pain all day long.
No.
My brain's not going to work well if I don't satisfy Dr. Quiet and actually get a good night's rest consistently.
Yes.
There's no nootropic that can outwork a
Dr.
bad night's
Quiet.
rest,
Yeah.
right? So I think of all these things, it all starts with the body, and really getting people dialed in to where they're no longer in pain. They have full function, full use. And that doesn't just come from strength and conditioning and things like that. That comes from an ecstatic dance.
Yeah.
If I'm moving around doing the old two-step because I've been deadlifting heavy and I can't really open my body, that's a constriction that moves not just through my physical body, but through my energetic body.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to affect how open I am with my son. That's going to affect how open I am in communication with my wife. And so realizing that, I want to move freely. I want to open everything up. I want to have full use of myself in this vessel. And if I can do that right, then I have a greater degree of mental and emotional stability. And as you know as well, the body's a tuning fork, right?
It's also a mirror of your mind. The body
and that's
always
a
mirrors.
fucking, you look at all the people in the world and say it's a mirror of your mind. That paints a whole different picture, doesn't it?
Well, it is, right?
Yeah.
What is it that goes through your mind that makes you smile? It's not sad thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not poor me. It's
Yeah.
happy thoughts. And so your mental state, to your cells, your mind is God. They act out whatever the mental flow is, whatever the belief is, whatever the expression is of mind is mirrored in the body 100%. You know, there's no, you don't see depressed people smiling. You don't see depressed people with good upright posture.
Yeah, posture's a big one.
Exactly.
Mirror, big mirror.
That's literally because the body is an antenna. And if you change the position of an antenna, you change the frequencies it's receiving. That's what yoga is really based on.
Yeah.
A lot of Chinese medicine is. That's what my zone exercises are based on.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person's got a rigid spine and poor posture, they have an X factor working against their, you know, what Thomas Hanna calls the green light posture, the go, engage life posture. And if they're collapsed, he called that the red light posture, which means the brakes are on. So when people can't handle their life, they go into a red light posture because their psychophysical reaction to life is, I got to stop, I got to slow down. They can't handle the flow of what they're creating unconsciously, typically. But when someone's got a sense of dream and a sense of values and they're engaged in life, then their mind creates a condition of engagement in the body. And so the whole body is responding to the mind all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
But anyhow, you were
Well, just saying it starts with the body, right? And I think getting people to have a deeper connection to themselves starts through the four doctors, right? And it ends with the four doctors as well. You know, like that's like the fool card in the tarot, right? So chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. At every stage of the game, the four doctors is apparent. And so really getting people to integrate that has been huge. Something that's really helped me on the mental side of things is getting, we talked about balance, right? So there was a good question that I had. I was hanging with a group of guys down in Mexico, and a lot of them, you know, were younger males. They saw me and Troy Casey, and they just thought like, wow, these guys are men's men. You know, like Kyle was a fighter.
Not to mention
you know?
the fact that these men are twice as old as you young men.
That's true, right?
Yeah.
Especially Troy. He's going to be 60. He's doing great.
Yeah.
You know, just thinking about that, there was a question on the feminizing of men, you know, and then phrased in a way where it's going to take, you know, the strong men to heal the world. And it's like, no, I'm even in that question. It's going to take balance, right? We all inherently, of course, you teach this in Spirit Gym and everywhere else, but we all have masculine and feminine. And part of holding that mirror in front of our face is saying like, am I, you know, as you talked about with Julia Dean Richards on your recent podcast, am I receiving everything? Am I sitting playing a fucking video game all day? Do I wear the pants, at least part-time in my relationship?
Yeah.
And that recognition can lead us to look at how do I balance that?
Yeah.
Right. So for some men, it is going to be do some manly shit, right? Build a fucking small house, work with your hands.
Go hunting.
Absolutely.
Slaughter an animal.
Harvest an animal, do those things. And for others, you know, the David Goggins of the world, it might be spend a couple weeks in the Amazon, start a meditation practice. See what your body and your mind feel like when you don't run every weekend or every day of the week, but don't do a marathon every weekend, 50 weeks a year, right? Like just sit with that. What are the feelings that come up? And there, you know, that's the pendulum swings deep both ways, right? So you have this feminization of male, and then you see, here's Superman. Let's become Superman, you know? And it's like, no, let's become balanced, right? That's where the healing begins. That's where I'm able to operate my best. And the same goes for the ladies.
Whether you're a fitness professional, healthcare specialist, or just a regular human being, I'm sure you've seen this. Someone who seems to be training hard and eating right, and yet they still can't shift those excess pounds, build muscle, or make progress on their health goals. It's like they're trapped in a hamster's wheel, running on the spot and getting nowhere, stuck in their stress, pain, and bewilderment about why they're not getting the results they think they should. The problem? Most people are only considering one or two aspects of health and wellness, and yet the human body is a complex system of systems. That's why the Chek Institute created the Chek Academy, a complete education in holistic health, exercise, and lifestyle coaching. If you're ready to make the leap into a new career, or perhaps seeking more advanced skills to enhance your current work, the Chek Academy is the path. In year 1, you'll go deep into holistic lifestyle coaching level 1, integrated movement science level 1, our new scientific core conditioning course, and much more, learning how to really help yourself and others thrive. You can study from your own home or join the Chek faculty at locations around the world for a combination of online and in-person courses. Enrollment is open now, but spaces are limited and the spots do fill up quickly. Head to chek.group/Chek Academy and submit your application before September the 30th. That's chek.group/CHEK Academy.
Well, the thing too is, yeah, you're right. And that you see that in social media all the time, the pendular swing. So let's go from Mama's Boy to Superman. But what they don't realize is that going from Mama's Boy to Superman without a progressive development and integration, you break yourself on the way to Superman. So you just end up an injured, broken, I wish I was. And that's why I teach an integrated system of education to my patients, to my clients, to my students, because you know, every step you take towards Superman, you need to be super centered, right? Like if I take someone in the gym and say, okay, let's try for a max lift, to the degree that your alignment is out of balance in the beginning, it's going to magnify that tremendously. A simple analogy that's true is if you take any load, say 5 pounds, and put it in your hand at arm's length, it's 10 times that load on your spine. If you bend your elbow, it's 5 times that load because of the lever arm. So if every time you increase the weight in your hand, so if you go from 5 to 10 pounds, you went from 50 to 100 pounds of load on your spine. So if you don't have the ability to center 100 pounds, you're on your way to a spinal injury or a neck injury or a shoulder injury, right?
Yeah.
So the stronger you get, the more centered you got to get, or you become what I call a one-hit wonder. You know, you're here today and gone tomorrow. And so my point is, the concept of centering has to be the center of any progressive developmental program, or you get further and further from your center. And while you're impressing everybody with your magical feats, you're becoming the fit, sick person that's going to disappear soon.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a concept that young people need more guidance on.
No question. No question. And I think if we are able to correct, that's part of the North Star, right? Is your North Star authentic? Is it something that's going to benefit you? Is it going to leave you more whole than when you started? That's a question we all got to ask ourselves. Are we running a marathon each week for 50 times a year? What am I doing that for?
Yeah, and who are you trying to impress with that? And you know, what's the knock-on effect? One of the questions I ask myself is, if everybody did what I'm doing right now, would the world be a better place? And that's an important question. If you throw a cigarette butt out the window and say, okay, if 7 billion people did that right now, would the world be a better place? Well, it's obviously no. If I'm telling everybody run a marathon a week so you can be a badass and everybody did that, well, there'd be fucking dead people everywhere. You know, we'd have a pandemic of worker shortage, and the doctor's offices, the orthopedic surgeons would be blown out. But it's just a concept, you know, and you know, it's a general statement. Like you and I are going to do a medicine ceremony together, and it's going to be a far, far deeper ceremony than 99% of the world population should ever even engage in. But the question is, should everybody take some time out for a sacred ceremony and, you know, do it with whatever is right for them at their level? Yeah, everybody should do that.
Right. And, you know, we've learned quite a few practices over the years that are going to crack, you know, breaking the habit of being yourself. How do I crack into that? How do I break through the psyche to open up new dimensions of being? I've guided, you know, hundreds of sessions with hundreds of people at a time, or smaller groups of 20 or 3 groups of 50, however that looked. You know, we've been able to really work with the body of people while engaging in holotropic breathing. And that's one of the most fantastic ways to access. That's free.
It's
but
free.
That too needs integration.
It does.
Right? That too needs coaching before, holding during, and the ability to integrate with somebody else afterwards. You know, and I feel like a lot of people, it's unfortunate, but we've had a few people who, you know, hear about me doing a high dose, or Aubrey or yourself, that jump in, and they talked about this in King Warrior Magician Lover right in the beginning. The act of initiation is only initiatory if you have a guide and you have the correct, it's like in a setting, you've got mindset and setting, set and setting. Well, that setting also has to be a temple, right? It has to be a place that's safe, but also holds you. And that's not just a physical structure. That's the before, during, and after piece.
In other words, it's not a rave concert.
Right. And it's not just a one-off, and it hopefully isn't you just doing it yourself, unless you have someone to coach you before and after. So I feel like, I've seen enough people fly off the rails, unfortunately, and try to talk to them, and they've got fucking 1.5 feet in the astral still, and it's a hard thing to palp, to really sit through. So I have been less beating of the drums on the medicines for the world, but more looking into what are the ways in which we can do this with less. What are the legal ways we can do this that actually do take effort and work? And that's one of the beautiful things about breath work, is that you can put your foot on the gas or the brakes. But it's not just buckle up. Like when we get to work tomorrow, buckle up. Like we're going to have to buckle up. And we've thankfully got the skill set and each other and in this wonderful fucking setting to make the most of it.
Buckle up means lay down.
Right. We won't be able to push the brakes, no matter what happens, but that's a part of the navigation and that's a part of surrender. And I've always appreciated ayahuasca uniquely as a medicine to help me with that, right?
Yeah.
The type A guys, the fucking go get them. Eating piss and vinegar, guys like us, it helps to have something that can assist one in surrender and in that teaching, people. Right? Yeah. And I think about that, Joe Dispenza's been a big influence on me, and I'll even use it as a verb. I dispensed that shit, when I talk about the land, or I dispensed my wife, like calling that in and really having that North Star and running the echo test as you teach, right? How do I speak this into being? I must appreciate that it's already here. Speak it as if it's already so. Make that prayer, hold it, and then fucking put one foot in front of the other and walk towards it.
Yeah.
And, Dispenza has a good teaching on that where he says, how do I hold in tension the thing I'm creating with surrender, right? And he talks about the thing we must surrender is the how and the when, right? We leave that to spirit. We leave that to the quantum. We leave that to God. And that's really helpful when we frame stuff, but it's the act of surrender that actually allows us to not cling to something. Right. And you see this if somebody's very specific on what they want. I want this chick, Khloe Kardashian, or whatever the thing is, and they don't allow spirit to deliver. Usually it doesn't work out for them.
Right.
Right. And you talked a bit before on finance. You want to be a millionaire, you have to have at least made 50% of what you're trying to call in, because your psyche's not going to agree with that. Part of you is going to say, fuck, how can I be a millionaire? I've been making $30K a year.
It's called a fantasy.
Yes, indeed.
That's detaching from reality.
Yeah.
The rule in goal setting is never set a goal that's greater than 50% of your prior achievement. So if you made 100 grand last year, shoot for 150. And many of my students say, well, what if I want $1 million? I say, well, put that dream out there, but put a first term goal of getting 150. And if you do that in 3 months, like, all right, the ball is rolling, baby. Now you go 150 and a half is an extra 75, go for that. Now you make the next 75 in the next 3 months, and you're up to 2.25. But you're taking realistic steps towards a bigger goal. Someone says, I want to deadlift 500 pounds. What can you deadlift now? 135. Okay, well, let's set a goal for, your body weight, When we got that one and you can do, 3 sets of 10, let's, hop it up a little bit.
I use that example a lot with the sun stuff, because we're big fans of Dr. Alexis Jasmine Cowan, who's a brilliant mind, a PhD from Princeton, and big into sunlight and all forms of light wave therapy and non-native EMFs, and has really, in my opinion, distilled the work of Jack Cruz in a way that's far more palpable for most people.
Soul.
She's incredible.
I love her.
But if I want to squat 1,000 pounds, I don't load 1,000 pounds on the bar and walk up to it and try. I work my way up to it.
Yeah.
Right. If I want to be able to relax in the sun all day in Mexico, I better fucking work my way up to it. I better live in that space for a while and slowly attenuate, build a sun callus, get my reps in, be consistent. And then over time, I have a sun callus where it'll work anywhere. And Cruz is a good example of that. He's He's pretty fair skinned. And yet he lives at 5,000 feet elevation in El Salvador and doesn't burn, right? He's acclimated to the climate by putting himself in there. And I think we can apply that to many things, but that's important that we do apply that to many things, because consistency is the thing that builds momentum in whatever it is we're working towards. And I think, there's a number of examples, but the basic idea behind what I want to teach in the community is that we reconnect people to their own intuition. And from that operating space of calm and clear, they can direct their lives and become the director again, instead of just the participant. So reorganizing the North Star. And you want to jump in, so I'll let you jump in.
No, I just had a thought that goes back to something you said earlier, and that is, you were talking about Joe Dispenza and, have your dream, but also have some healthy detachment. And I think why that's important is because we don't realize that our dreams always involve typically a lot of other people. Like you're in the phase of developing a new offering, and we're going to get into that here. But, a good example is if your dream is to make $1 million this year and you do it, but you forget that a lot of your family's involved, people are involved. And then you use that $1 million, like say, oh, I got $1 million, I'm going to go gambling. And you lose it. But in the meantime, you've bought a house that's 3 times more expensive. Now you have 2 fancy cars. Then what happens is you forgot the knock-on effect of how your dream affects all the people that supported you in the creation of the dream. And we also have to realize that sometimes our dreams may be ideal for us, but it may not be realistic for the universe to move the people into the right place at the right time to support that dream. Like the number of X factors that go involved in dreaming is significant. So why it's important to have a healthy degree of detachment is, well, I can give you a quick example. Right when we just bought this house, this property, and COVID lockdown started. And we had just signed we got the approval and we signed the loan deal. So we had the money and we were just about to make the title transfer. And our loan company calls us and said, we're really sorry to have to tell you this. This is the first time that's ever happened in the history of our company, or that we even know of. But the bank that lends us the money, because they were a broker's, is canceled all loans of your type because they're worried that the economy is going to crash and people won't be able to pay their loans. And the first thing I said to them is, that's illegal. You've already approved our loan. We've already met your criteria, and we've already bought the house. And the lady is moving out of the house and she's depending on our money. So that's why we have laws in place for this. And they said, we realize that and we're very sorry and embarrassed, but there's nothing we can do right now. We can recommend some emergency loan companies that you might be able to get a fast loan from. We checked them out and talked to them, and the interest rate was between 19 and 30%.
On a fucking home loan?
On a $2 million house. Okay, so this was the home of our dreams. It took us 5 years to find it. We put $500,000 down. We took everything. We put our heart and soul into this. But then, here we are facing a situation where if we got an emergency loan, our mortgage was going to double or triple. It was going to go up to $18,000 or $20,000 a month. And I said to Angie and Penny, I can't work that hard anymore. I've been working a long time. I don't want my life to be more complicated, and I don't want to wake up every day having to work for money, because I'm not here to work for money. I need the space within myself to know that I can be supported while I support other people. But if I have to work to make that much money every month, because the mortgage is just a tiny drop of it in a place like this, you're here, So I said, we just have to trust the universe And as much as we love the house, we've just got to let go of needing it. We have to just trust that if it's meant to be, it'll work out, but we don't want to do anything stupid. We don't want to put ourselves under extreme financial pressure just because we want to be in this house. If the universe brought us here and it's moving us into another direction right now, we have to go with the flow of the Tao. If we swim upstream, I always tell people, don't push water uphill. Right now, we're about to push water uphill, and that's not an exercise you can ever stop. The instant you stop pushing water uphill, it goes downhill. Meaning, the instant that I'm having a hard time making huge amounts of money every month, the gravity of the situation does not go away. I have no way to rest. So, the girls really wanted to be here for the kids, for all the reasons.
All the fucking reasons. This place is magical.
It is, and it's a very, very special place. But I said to them, I'm not going to be able to enjoy the place if all I'm doing all day long is working my ass off, writing books, putting on workshops, and this is just an endless string because I've spent the last 40 years of my life doing that, and I am fucking tired. I'm moving here to live my dream home and have the life I want without killing myself, and to practice what I teach, not to become like a lot of people that cannot have a healthy degree of dreaming, but with a healthy degree of detachment. So I said to them, let's just pause. We need to just relax and just turn it over to the Tao. If you guys want to keep looking for other properties that we can afford, and we want to wait until we have a beautiful home here in Vista. We got 3/4 of an acre. We can see the ocean out the freaking front window. We're not like we're living in a bad situation. It's just a small house with, two kids, and it was getting crowded, and 5G was driving me crazy, and we just wanted to get out of there because it was time to go. So they agreed and they relaxed. 2 days later, we got a call out of the blue. Mortgage broker calls and said, well, we've got a surprise for you. We felt so embarrassed at what happened with your loan and the situation it's put you and your buyer in, the people that you bought it from. We got together as a company and decided to fund your mortgage ourselves.
Holy shit.
And we're going to give it to you at 2% less interest than your loan that you had already been approved for. So,
wow.
Wildly enough,
wow.
2 days after we let go and turned it over to Great Spirit and practiced exactly what you're talking about, detachment, our mortgage payment went from almost $10,000 a month down to almost exactly what we were paying for our 100 square foot house with 3/4 of an acre. And that's the Tao. So that's the healthy detachment.
I love that. Yeah, your story is a great one. It reminds me of, some of the things I've dispensed, for lack of a better term, was my wife, and one of the things that I think is super important for people as well is to mirror the thing you're calling in, right? I can't call in the hottest, fittest, most beautiful partner if I don't take care of my physical being.
You got to meet him.
I can't
where you want to be.
Exactly. And I was in a long relationship where things were slowly drifting apart. I was living in Arizona with her half the year, and then I'd go home for fight camps. And my boxing coach, who was mestizo, Native American, Aztec, and Mexican, would bring me out to the reservation for sweat lodges. And after a couple of years of that, we started working with psilocybin in the sweat, and then eventually ayahuasca. So I'd go home after a fight to Scottsdale, and it's like, cocaine's there, fucking ecstasy, alcohol, everything's free because I'm in the UFC and I played football here, and it's fun until it's no longer fun, and then as I had these other things that I was gravitating towards that were showing me a different way of being and a different degree of peace and a different degree of maybe not needing to scratch that itch, the itch just went away.
Yeah.
And I asked her if she wanted to participate in that stuff, and she wasn't interested at that time. And we've talked about this, whether fit for service or, the Chek Institute, but people who come and want to change, if their partner doesn't, that doesn't last long.
No.
It really doesn't. And
if you can't maintain values alignment, then the angel of death is appearing soon in the relationship.
Yeah. And I loved her dearly. We were everything but married. We had We were running a house together, joint bank account, all the things. And so I got my second fight of the night bonus, and I had put a down payment for the wedding ring. It was 15 grand. I put 5 grand down, and I knew I wouldn't be able to afford it any other way on UFC pay. And so, but right then, the second that down payment went down, I had tons of thoughts. I'm like, fuck, dude, I don't know if this is going to work. And I ended up, before I had really worked intelligently on utilizing medicines with respect and reverence, I took a bit of mushrooms with my buddy, and we went to the movies. We saw Green Lantern, which is a dog shit movie sober, far worse on psilocybin. So don't do what I did. It was fucking horrendous. Yeah. But we get out of that. It's a full moon. I'm walking my dog. I'm talking to my buddy, and I'm like, man, I don't think it's going to work. And I'm really nervous that, I just don't think it's going to pan out. And he's like, no, everything's fine. So that night, before I had a deep inner knowing and a gnosis of what God is and a relationship to God, I remember making the prayer, God, if you exist, the God, if you exist prayer. And I just said, God, if you exist and you hear me, show me, give me a sign that this is going to work or not going to work. And I make it blunt, make it something where I can't look away and I can't say no to, I can't chalk that up to coincidence. Like, give me a real message, because what I don't want is us to be married for 5 years and have kids and then a split.
Yes.
I just didn't want, I wanted to avoid that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to grow with somebody, And the very next morning, she broke up with me.
Awesome.
And I was like, holy shit. I mean, just wide-eyed, mouth wide open.
Pretty blunt.
I'm looking, this is as blunt as it gets, right? And I was like, and she's got tears running down her face. 6 years together, right? Joint bank account, all the things. She had no idea that I was about to propose.
Right.
And I'm like, well, hold on. She's like, aren't you sad? And I was like, yes, but you got to understand, like last night I ate mushrooms and the Green Lantern sucked. And then I was under the full moon and I made this prayer to God, if you exist. And holy shit, it all makes sense now. Thank you for having the balls to end this, to be honest, when I couldn't, because it all immediately, it was just like, oh, of course, we're not going to be together.
And look at the angel God delivered after
that. Exactly. So in that time period after, I really got clear, and I think it was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I think that book had just come out. So I was really reading on that and trying to utilize it for fighting, but big picture, what does my life actually look like? Who is the partner I want to call in? And I knew I wasn't going to find Mrs. Perfect because I wasn't Mr. Perfect, but I also knew what failed in the previous relationship that I should rectify for the next. What was good and worked well and what needs changing. And the biggest thing that I saw that needed changing was I needed a partner who was willing to grow with me. And it didn't mean she had to do plant medicines, but like, we got to grow together. I knew that as one of the core tenets. And Natasha, who I've been with for 13 fucking beautiful and amazing years, she hit me up. She's like, hey, I want to do a marathon down in your neck of the woods. I'd love to stay with you and your partner. And I was like, well, it's just me, Then so we started talking, and, one of the first, she had come from, you know this well because you know her well, but she had come from a pretty fundamentalist Christian background. And I wanted her, she was open to different looks at life. And so I wanted her to read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I was like, this book has been fucking transformative and I'd love for you to read it. And she's like, I want you to read the 5 love languages. And I had it done in 2 days. And she was really impressed because I knew right then, if I don't fucking read this book, how could I ever ask her to read a book? Right. Something as simple as that. But as I said yes to those things and started to mirror what I wanted to create, that was reflected back to me. Fucking perfect match, and 13 years later with 2 kids and the farm and all the things, like life has panned out really well. But if I think of like the things that I've really worked with on that, surrendering to who, surrendering to how, detaching from the outcome, and then mirroring the thing that I'm trying to create, couldn't have been better.
We live in a world where stress is constant and distractions are endless. If you're like many of my clients juggling family, career, training, and spiritual practice, you've probably felt the toll it takes on your clarity and vitality. You may even be someone that can't get through the day without drinking coffee, even when it's not making you feel better anymore. That's why I'm excited to share something that's become part of my daily ritual, Nandaka by Peak. Nandaka means the sword of wisdom. It isn't your typical energy booster or coffee substitute. Nandaka is a sacred blend of organically grown adaptogenic and nootropic botanicals designed not to mask your fatigue, but to nourish your nervous system, feed your brain, and support deep, sustainable energy from the inside out. That's what true vitality is all about. Unlike most mushroom products that are stuffed with mycelium grown on grain,
Nandaka is made from 100% fruiting bodies. That's where the medicine lives. You get the full spectrum of benefits of lion mane for mental clarity and nerve regeneration, reishi and chaga for modulating stress and inflammation, and ceremonial cacao rich in anandamide, the bliss molecule, to uplift your mood and calm your system. Even the cacao butter serves a higher purpose, acting as a delivery mechanism to carry these nutrients deep into your brain. When I take Nandaka before podcasting, teaching, writing, or conducting a therapy session, I notice something profound. The energy is steady, the focus is clean, and my creativity flows without resistance. It supports the body, the mind, and the soul all at once. And here's the truth. If your brain and nervous system are overstimulated and undernourished, you'll always be inviting burnout. That's why I don't treat the symptoms. I go to the source. And Nandaka aligns with that philosophy. I'm truly impressed with Nandaka, and that's why I'm excited to share this powerful, effective support and nourishment to help you stay vital throughout each day, to bring you many of the core nutrients most everybody's brain, nervous system, and body needs today. Currently, there are over 18,000 five-star reviews on Peak's amazing products, and Nandaka is trusted by some of the top minds in wellness for a reason, including me. These products actually work. Tune in, reconnect, nourish your core. Try Nandaka and feel the shift. Nandaka is a powerful ally, and right now, you can get 20% off for life, plus a free starter kit with your first order, and a rechargeable frother and helpful glass beaker for mixing your Nandaka exclusively at peaklife.com/Paul Chek. Once again, that's PIQUELIFE.com/PAULCHEK. peaklife.com/Paul Chek for 20% off for life plus a free starter kit with your first order. Yeah, and you're gifted because your wife, in my opinion, gets more beautiful as she ages.
She does.
And she was already a 10 to start with. I mean, when I saw you guys at your house when me and Penny came to do a podcast with you when we were in Austin a while back, I don't know, how old is Natasha now?
She just turned 40 this year.
40, right.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw her, I'm like, my God, look at her. She's just so beautiful in her maturation. You can see that the youthful ring girl has matured into, a seasoned mother and, a farmer and
a teacher for the kids, homeschooling.
And amazing. Her art has always been amazing, but like I saw what I dream of for every woman in her. And I just told her, I said, Natasha, you are just so beautiful. It's amazing to see you holding yourself together so well. And I just think she's such a great example for other women to just, and she doesn't seem at all fixated on her beauty. Like a lot of beautiful women are just neurotic, and
yeah,
she's just like a beautiful river flowing through the mountains, and I just love seeing that, not only for her, but for anyone that ages beautifully, Yeah. Like here you are, what are you, 43, right?
43, yeah.
And you're still built like a brick shit house and healthy. And
I'm trying to stay like you. That's the truth.
You got 20 years to keep working at it.
20 years to keep working at it.
Yeah.
If this is the new dad bod, then you're the new granddad bod.
Yeah.
We can change the game going forward.
I'm the fit old guy that lifts heavy stones and, likes to do art.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really, what we're talking about, really, isn't that at the epicenter of what you're now creating on your own?
Absolutely. And I think that's that epicenter.
What's the vision then?
The vision is of about 100, 150 people online where there's extra offerings at the farm in different places. We've got actually, whether you're in the community or not, I got a really cool event coming up in the end of August I'll talk about called The Rising with Connor Milstein. But hands-on, bringing people in to reconnect to their food, reconnect to where it comes from. You talk about this a lot on Instagram as well. Know your fucking farmer.
Yeah.
Right? At the bare minimum, go to a farmer's market. But if you really like something, and I did this long before we had the farm. When Bear was 4, he's 10 now, he sat on my lap for a bison harvest at Rome Ranch. These are the Force of Nature guys that are in Whole Foods, Sprouts, everywhere, right? Biggest regenerative bison guys in the world. And he sat on my lap. We did a 7 directions prayer, and out of a herd of 80 bison, the one we had to take, she kept hooking the rancher with her horn. She got him 3 times.
Wow.
She was a nasty mom. She came over and presented herself broadside to the guy with the rifle at 20 yards. And Bear was sitting on my lap. She separated herself from the herd for us.
That's
It was remarkable.
spiritual.
The prayer was heard, right? And man, it got me. And I remember just holding Bear and kind of shaking while the emotion came through. And he understood what it means to take something's life to live, right? And we got to hold his warm body and sprinkle tobacco down and really care for that animal. Her skull sits on my altar, and her robe, her bison fur is in the master bedroom. I'll stretch on it daily. And that fed Wolfie when she was growing in the womb, right? She's born of that bison. And Bear as well. But that's a very simple way to reconnect. A lot of people that I talk to, they're like, never going to own a farm. Cool. They may never even homestead. Cool. I fucking grew tons of shit on a 1/4 acre. I was growing on 1/10 of an acre, right? I was planting trees in my mom's backyard when I lived in the garage for 5 years while I was fighting in the UFC, not making any money, right? I asked my mom, I was like, can I plant trees? I want to plant some fruit trees. She's like, go for it. Put in 8 trees, a giant raised bed, and so this connection piece is an important one. It's the connection to self. It's the connection to other and through relationship. It's the connection to nature, right?
The cycle of life.
The cycle of life, and a connection to food. And in every way that I make that more intimate, I become closer to it, and it becomes closer to me.
I want to just share something that's important to me. There are countless peoples that will not live on a farm, start a farm. But if we could raise the consciousness of people in general as to what it actually is that they're investing in when they buy from a regenerative farmer or an organic farmer or a biodynamic farmer, then they could actually feel good about the fact that they are contributing to the wheel of life, because it's a choice. You're either contributing to the wheel of death, which is corporate farming and all the chemicals and all the drugs and all the antibiotics, and not realizing that whatever they put on the land goes in the water, or you drink it, it's on the food, you eat it. Like thinking that you're saving money on food is a really very materialistic conception, because you think that your body's a machine and you're just replacing machine parts with machine parts. But when you realize that it takes life to feed life, and to nurture life, you have to clean, feed, nurture, and protect. So if you can't afford to, don't have the time or the inclination to, and you live in an apartment in Manhattan, you can identify where the farmers markets are. You can identify who the real organic farmers are that are selling in the markets that you have access to. You can find out who's doing a delivery in town from a farm 50 miles away. You can really contribute to supporting the people that are living and raising animals and plants and stewarding the earth in a way that actually puts the money in the hands of a force of healing and balance. And you don't need to start a farm to do that. You can still drive your twin turbo Porsche Carrera and wear your fancy suits and go to your bank and whatever you want to do, but just knowing that you're putting life force into life itself, I think, is just a huge healing for the world.
Absolutely.
We have got to starve out the corporations that are killing the planet, and they're making billions and billions and billions of dollars by taking the blood right out of the life of nature. And that's a show that's going to have a hard end if we don't get involved.
Absolutely. Well, back to the point that I was saying about people not having a farm, not needing to start a farm. there are ways, just like breath work, and plant medicine for that matter, that we can open up, right? It's an experiential way to connect to spirit, entheogen, to be in God. There are ways where you can have transformational practices that don't require you to farm, right? I didn't have a farm when I brought Bear for that. And that was a fucking full-on ceremony, right? And we treated it as such with the prayer, the tobacco, and everything, utilizing the body, nose to tail, every bit of it, eating raw liver. And people can come and experience that. I want to deliver that to people. So there's obviously an online education piece that's going to be a part of this on how we reconnect to the body. How do we hone it? 4 doctors, required reading, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. Everybody listening to this podcast, I'm sure, is fucking up to date on that. Health and Light by John Ott, we talked about last time. But then the deeper dive into this balance point and how that's used, the deeper dive of surrender and how that's used, and continuing to use this North Star as a compass to hone who do we want to be, who are we becoming, and what is our relationship to all these things? What is my relationship to me? What does my relationship look like to my wife? What does my relationship look like to the people I work with? What is my relationship with the planet and the food that I purchase? And how do I vote with my dollars? And what are the experiences that to me, make the most sense and transform people the most? Are ways in which we can crack the head open, right? And so those are experiences we'll continue to offer without plant medicine, fully legal. And those are experiences we're going to continue to offer from the food side of things, where like people can participate in a harvest on our land and see the animals. They can participate in field dressing an animal. They can eat raw liver with us. They can go home with some meat. They can do a lot of things in that way. Muck a chicken stall, learn how to build a market garden. We have 118 acres, and knowing most people aren't even going to have 1 or 2, we made a tiny ass 1/4 acre market garden just to show like you can do this in your backyard. Here's how we do it here. And this is what it looks like. And this is the work that it's required. And let's go get our hands dirty.
And
let's plant some stuff.
It's also a labor of love. I mean, there's nothing... my children love going to the greenhouse and to the garden beds and raiding the tomatoes and the peppers,
strawberries,
all of it. And, as a parent, seeing your children really excited about, wow, let's go steal some tomatoes, or eat this or eat that. And just chomping the stuff down like candy and knowing that they watered these, they helped plant these things, like that is if we don't start grounding children in the soil, they grow up thinking that eating crap and living the way most people are living is a normal way to live. It's not.
Yeah.
That, if I wanted to destroy a population, I would just bring them a fucking bunch of Pop-Tarts, microwaves, ovens, and TV dinners and commercial anything, and watch the degradation happen. And it doesn't take long. It really doesn't take long. But the other truth is it really doesn't take long to really, you turn every cell in your body over on a yearly cycle based on current research. Every single cell in your body is turned over on an annual basis. So when you go from completely out of touch with these kinds of principles to living with your feet in the ground and making good purchases and supporting farmers and eating real food that's clean, you can see radical transformations. As I was sharing with you in your podcast this morning, Lady Eve Balfour found when private schools started their own farms and switched to organic farming, that it was very common for kids to go through about a 2 weeks of detoxing. And they often would get the flu or have flu-like symptoms. They would have achy joints. They would sometimes get diarrhea. But they all knew that was the body healing itself, because now it had the nutrition on board to run the detoxification pathways, to clean itself out. And so the point I'm making is, just like you can wipe people out, you can take a healthy kid and wipe them out with a year of processed food and sugar. You can take that same sick kid, and within a year, pretty much, if you give them a clean diet, the resources they need to rebuild every cell in their body out of something worthy of being in a human body. So the reason I share that is for everybody listening, no matter how far down the rabbit hole you are and how bad your health might be and how tired you might feel, or broken you might feel, just getting the right principles in place and giving yourself, food that's real, water that's clean and vitalized, sunlight, movement, having a dream for yourself, creating your own spiritual practice so you ritualize the things that are important to you, getting enough rest. You're actually investing in long-term health and well-being.
And with that, you're coming back into a state of resonance, right? You are tuning the tuning fork.
With the whole planet.
With the whole planet. You're participating in ways that are healing the planet,
Yeah.
not a detriment to, that heal the fucking soil, the animal, everything becomes more nutrition.
Yeah.
Right? The grass gets better year after year. The soil gets better year after year. The trees get better. The water gets better. The animals get better. The food that goes into your body gets better. You get better. And as you get better, you think differently.
Yeah.
You behave better. Your intuition comes on board. Will Tagle talked another point that he made that I really liked outside of the golden thread was that there's, and we of course know that he's not the first guy to say it, but we know this through our own medicine journeys and beyond, but that there is an internal GPS. And I call it a GGS, a global guidance system, right? That's within Gaia herself, Pachamama. That's within the sun. That's within the moon. That's within each one of us as individuals and every plant and everything. That's why, when you're teaching how to connect to plants with your saliva, it's like that's holy shit. Dead sober, holy shit, that works. That's a real thing, right? And if you're not certain of that and you have a little medicine experience during the daytime, go connect with a plant. You'll know exactly what we're talking about. It's You can't not see it, right? That's always the way that it is. You just have the eyes to see for maybe 6 to 8 hours, but that's always the case. And I think, as we harmonize the body, these things come back on board. That GPS becomes more apparent. And there's less of this, well, how do I know if it's my ego versus it me? Because there's a gnosis, right? There's no debate inside. Like when you talked yesterday about getting bit, about communicating with your soul to find out what happened and what kind of danger you're in. There wasn't a fucking person here that was like, Paul thinks he's talking to his soul right now, or maybe that's Paul's ego, right? Everybody just knew, like, I want to hear what fucking Paul's soul has to say.
Paul's ego was scared, so he had to get past it quick.
Refer to the master, right? Absolutely. And so I think that, when we think of ways in which to get there, it does start with the body. And, these 4 doctors in harmony, right? Like movement's an important piece, but diet, right? If we're putting good, clean things in our body, we're no longer bottlenecking ourselves.
Right.
There's a lot of people, thanks to Goggins and others, that are overtraining, and they're not working in, they're not participating in good sleep habits and meditation and things like that. But I think that's far less of an issue than the food and the water we're consuming.
Yes.
Right. And that was the thing that changed everything for me. And I've talked about that on many podcasts, but what planted the seed that planted all seeds for my secondary education was my strength coach having me watch Flatten Your Abs Forever on VHS. And then I said, fine, I'll read the book. Read How to Eat, Move, Be Healthy. That was another thing that was surprisingly a challenge for my wife and I, because we read that together. And I had already read it before. And I was like, we should read this. We should fill out the questionnaires. I didn't think it'd be challenging. But even with 2 people that love each other and are willing to grow, it's challenging when you start pointing out, hey, you've got a cookie addiction. And hey, Kyle, you drink too much, and it's like, oh shit. All right. There's some truth in that.
Yeah.
And that took years of working through and fucking at least 12 times we'd read that thing start to finish and fill out the questionnaires again and revisit it because the body changes. No man or woman ever crosses the same river twice.
Right.
The river's not the same, neither is the person. And revisiting that took a lot of time. It took a lot of energy and it was worth it in the end.
Well, of course.
But there was mental, emotional struggle going through that. We're looking at shadow shit. We're seeing, we've got candida again. We're seeing all these things. But as far as the change of what that made was so astronomical that's what got me to read everything else. That's what got me into Wim Hof and Kelly Starrett and anybody else I get my hands on. Is I said, I could learn this much in one book.
Yeah.
What other books out there can create that level of state change?
Yes.
Right? Or actually have a greater degree of awareness. I feel better. I perform better in fighting, which is, in my opinion, the greatest test on earth. And I recover faster. I sleep better. Everything, sex is better. Everything is improved because of that.
Yeah.
Organifi have just come out with their brand new Creatine Cherry Chews, a sports gummy designed to enhance performance and recovery. containing the highest quality creatine monohydrate sourced from Germany, together with Vita Cherry, a tart cherry extract known for its antioxidant properties. Organifi's creatine cherry chews are free from additives, sweeteners, or fillers and taste amazing. They are the perfect exercise enhancer because your body uses the creatine for energy immediately. Take 2 gummies before or after your workout, and most people will feel the difference after 2 weeks of constant use. Used regularly, creatine can increase endurance and muscle strength, help reduce muscle cell damage, assist with recovery, and support cognitive function and focus. To try Organifi's Creatine Cherry Chews and save 20% off your order, go to Organifi.com/Chek20 and use the promo code Chek20. That's Organifi.com/CHEK20, and the code for your 20% discount is Chek20.
Yeah, well, it takes life to feed life, and we have to participate in it. And I think, you talked about the challenges of going through Eat, Move, and Be Healthy and doing the questionnaires and kind of what you can bump up with partners. But I think that's why in my system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, love. What is your dream? What do you love enough to change for and to grow for? What do you love more than you love your challenges, right? 2, everything in the universe is created out of 2 forces, the feminine and the masculine. Feminine yin, masculine yang. So where are you out of balance? 4 doctors. Dr. Happiness and Dr. Movement are yang, Dr. Quiet and Dr. Diet are yin. So you say, okay, Dr. Quiet and Dr. Diet bring energy in, and they're multipliers of resources and power. Thinking, generally, and movement are yang. They're spending energy and resources, and over time decrease power. Like, we always are more tired of thinking at the end of the day than we are at the beginning of the day, especially if we use our mind a lot. So I teach my therapist, the Chek professionals always look at the general balance of the anabolic regenerative energies, Dr. Quiet and Dr. Diet, against the catabolic tissue destructive energy spending and resource spending, Dr. Movement and Dr. Happiness. And all you got to do is look at the balance of those 4 doctors within the context of outgoing and ingoing energy and resources, and you come to the very basic realizations. Okay, I'm overspending because I'm not sleeping. I'm over consuming stimulants. I'm overeating sugar or whatever. But it doesn't matter how accurate my assessment is or any doctor's or therapist's assessment is. If you don't have something you love more than the stuff that you're feeding on that creates the imbalance, you're not going to change. You're just not going to change. If you don't have something to reach for that inspires you to overcome the inertia of your life, you will become like the average person that's in your life. And that's why I remind people, remember, misery loves company. You're going to have to be strong enough to deal with the people that say, hey, why don't you eat pizza anymore, man? What are you doing, copping out? How come you're not having beer with us?
Yep.
If
I've been at many a bachelor party on a microdose of acid while my buddies were pissed that I wasn't slamming beers or taking key bumps. And I'm like, I brought enough for everybody. If you guys want to partake in what I'm doing, cool, but I'm definitely not doing what you're doing right now.
Right. And so you see, this is the transition from the child to the warrior archetype. If you can't stand up for yourself and say, this is who I am, these are my values, and I can love you just fine while you're poisoning yourself, I used to do it too, but it's just not the direction I'm heading in anymore, then you will fall back into the lowest common denominator of the people in your life. But you will still complain every day, and you will still spend money on doctors and therapists. You'll still itch, scratch, and have skin problems and gut problems and everything, cognitive problems, and you'll have a long list of drugs that the doctors and drug companies will happily provide you to support you in maintaining your misery and sweeping it under the carpet. But, once you realize what your dream is and you realize where your imbalances are, then you have effective choices you've got to make. That's number 3, optimal, suboptimal, or do nothing. Mm-hmm. And then you have to apply that to 4-doctor living, because you cannot escape the reality of those 4 doctors. There's no such thing as a healthy 3-doctor person. It's impossible.
That is impossible.
It's impossible.
That's absolutely impossible.
And if you're doing the work to be healthy in 3 and you're screwing one of them up, you just abolished all the work that you were doing in 3.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about like the foundational pieces to me are movement, diet, and quiet. But without happiness, what the fuck are you doing it for? How long will that last? How long can you sustain eating nourishing food, going to bed on time, having a working in practices, and in all the things necessary in those first 3, if there's no happiness, if there's nothing that brings you joy in your life, if you have no, North Star of what you're heading towards and becoming,
that's why
that ain't going to last.
That's exactly why, very well, I have songs for each of the 4 doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, Dr. Happy is the dreamer, don't you know? Dr. Happy sets your rhythms set your pressure, and your rhythms and your pressure make your flow. And your rhythms and your pressure makes your flow. Ho, ho. Right, there it is. Dr. Happy is the dreamer. Dr. Happy is the one that says, I choose to be this in 3 months. I choose to be this in 6 months. I choose to be that in a year. I choose to have this much income in my life. I choose to have these kind of relationships. I choose to use my money to support these values. That's the dreamer. And to do that and be congruent with it and pray and move your feet means you have to have awareness of how your rhythms hover around food, hover around exercise, hover around rest, hover around sacred practices such as meditation or whatever your spiritual practice. I tell people your daily ritual should be built around the sacred. Most people say, I don't have time for the sacred because I'm too busy doing this or that. Mm-hmm. Well, what's sacred requires a sacrifice. And the reason we sacrifice is because we're sacrificing something that is itself important and sacred and meaningful, without which we aren't going to be healthy or survive. So instead of thinking to yourself, I work 10 hours a day and I hardly have time to do any of this, well, then redream.
What is the African proverb on meditation? I think you've mentioned it to me before. Like in the West, they stand up all day, work. In the East, they sit quietly in contemplation. And in Africa, their meditation is done in the field, right? In the work.
Yeah.
Something
I think
along those
you're
lines.
Thinking Ubuntu.
Okay.
I can't remember how it goes. It's very profoundly beautiful though. And it's, for me, it's at the end of the day, my brain's tired, but it has something to do with the unity of us all.
Yeah. And the unity of bringing that quiet mind into what you do, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to have an hour for meditation if you can apply some of these things to your daily work, and the work that you're doing becomes sacred.
Yes.
Right. I love it. I just got a great podcast with John Churchill. Thanks for hooking me up.
John,
it was funny. He was already in my phone.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
I just put John FFS. I was like, I didn't fucking put his last name in. It was just silly. Or maybe he put it in as FFS, but he texted me. We did a great one. And he talked about sacred body.
Yes.
Right. Like that's why I do full temple reset every winter. Is your body's a temple. Your psyche's a temple. Your spirit's a temple.
Yeah.
Right. All aspects of this Trinity. Mm-hmm. And we have to reset. We can reset these things to zero out and to be better versions of ourselves. Is something I've really enjoyed doing with Eric Godsey. But I had a good teaching from, I had a post coming up about this. You may have podcasted with him already. Why am I blanking on his name? Richard something. It's the guy who did Gene Keys.
I don't remember that.
It's going to kill me if I don't pull it up right now. So Richard Rudd.
Oh, okay. I had a podcast with Kenneth Pelletier, who's an expert on genetics, which was phenomenal.
Gene Keys is different. It's more along the lines of, he was the main teacher of human design in the West.
Oh, okay.
And so from the UK over, he's from Britain. So he taught UK through the Americas, or maybe he was the Eastern guy. I'm confusing with Robert Gilbert doing biogeometry in the West, but he was the Eastern, right? From UK eastward. And a brilliant mind. Gene Keys is what he's known for, but there was a smaller book that's lesser known called The Art of Contemplation. And it makes me think of the proverb that I butchered, but that we have this triangle of consciousness. In one, we have concentration, doing, then the line on the bottom goes across to meditation, being. And where they meet at the top of that arc is in contemplation. And it's where we bring a meditative mind to our experience. We reflect, right? And so I think this is such an important skill to work with, especially in America, is because it's usually one or the other if we're decent, right? Some people know that if they meditate, they're going to be better off at grinding because they meditated, right? It's like people like us, when you first get into meditation, you can't do it. And then you finally get one and you're like, oh shit, my brain works better the second half of the day.
Yeah.
I actually feel better. I worked my ass off all day and some shit happened and I was able to meditate. And now I'm a good father again because I took a small break between work and being a dad.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that pause is super important.
Defragmentation.
Yeah, exactly. Coming to zero. And, but bringing this reflective mind through the art of contemplation is also a great skill to have because we can't figure out everything at all times.
No.
And nor do we. And if we do that, we're just going to be jerking off with our own mental habits over and over again, trying to fucking see every which way it goes. And you can't possibly do that. So, you know, similarly to what you were talking about with Dispenza's work, to detach, right? To detach from the outcome, to surrender the how and the when. When you bring that mindset in to being, then you can meditate while you're doing the dishes or mowing the lawn. I can ask myself a question, a deep question that I need help with. And as long as I hold that without trying to figure it out, it will present itself to me, either in the 3D, as Richard Rudd said, or in my dreams or in a journey, right? It's going to come to me at some point, holding that question and not needing to figure it out, right? So I love the contemplative mind as well. I think it flows with a lot of what you've been talking about. And to me, I think it's a skill that's underutilized.
If you have listened to even one episode of Paul's podcast before, then you will know that he is passionate, and some would say even fanatical, about the quality of the food he eats and where it is sourced from. That is why the Chek household only eats pasture-raised meat, wild-caught fish, and organic produce. And that is why we subscribe to Wild Pasture's meat delivery service. Each month, Wild Pastures delivers a box of meat that has been raised by family farmers in the USA using regenerative farming practices. 100% grass-fed and finished beef, pasture-raised chicken, and pasture-raised pork, as well as wild-caught seafood. You can customize the selection in your box, add on extra when you know you will be feeding more people, or change your options each and every month. You might be thinking that this will be too expensive for you, but Wild Pasture's mission is to offer the highest quality meat at the lowest prices because they want to transform the meat industry. And that means that more people need to be able to choose meat that is raised right. Their pasture-raised animals are part of a natural ecosystem. Their farmers use rotational grazing, practices that mimic nature, and so do not need to use synthetic fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides, hormones, or antibiotics. This beautiful process doesn't require the external resources, such as massive amounts of GMO grain, required with environmentally depleting conventional methods. And best of all, the meat and fish taste amazing. And for Paul's listeners, Wild Pastures are offering you 20% off your subscription for life, $15 off your first order, and free shipping. Seriously, you can't find a better deal for top quality pasture-raised meat. Go to wildpastures.com/Paul Chek. You don't need a promo code. Just visit wildpastures.com/Paul Chek and start choosing the goodies you will have delivered to you in your first box.
I love contemplative meditation as a practice. And, Father Thomas Keating, who Ken Wilber spent a lot of time with, who was a Christian. He was a Christian preacher, and I can't remember what his title was, but like a bishop or something. Very amazing, grounded, really cool guy. And I
like a Sean O'Leary.
Yeah, not quite so diverse. He very Christian.
So
very within the Christian lineage, but kind of like along the tradition of a Christian mystic, more so. But I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Who I think he has an audio course on contemplative meditation, and I just can't remember his name right now. But it was really, really good. But an example of a contemplative meditation is to take a poem of Rumi's. For example, a simple line from Rumi, the function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. And And so a contemplative meditation would be to take that line of poetry and you could recite it and say, function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. And just then allow yourself to see what rises in your mind as an image, or what feelings rise up, and just not rush it. Just let it unfold, and then just say the function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. And just say to your own soul, dear soul, what is it that Rumi really is wanting to teach me when he states the function of a broken heart is like? And so you just sit with it, and you let your intuitive faculty, your emotional faculty, your sense perception, your body, you let all aspects of communication come to you with that intention. I want to understand this, or I want to know how to apply this in my own life. I like that because it's not just sitting there hoping that your mind goes flat.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can actually tune your consciousness to a specific statement, phrase, quote, passage, and use that as a means of paradoxically engaging your mind with non-engagement. Put the request out to the universe, but keep the mailbox open. Don't let your head wander around with, what am I going to do tonight? Back chatter. It gives you something to anchor on.
Yeah.
You state the question, or you state the phrase, or you state the passage, and you allow yourself to really feel it and to see with your eyes closed what image rises up in me. The function of a broken heart is to let your love pour out. Well, the image that rises up in me is a red heart with a big crack in it, but beautiful, clear, pristine water pouring out.
I just had the same mental image of water coming out.
Isn't that right? Like, it's crazy, isn't it? So like, what's below the water is nature. Sometimes we have to go through enough pain to realize what we really want. And then our consciousness becomes clear. And when our consciousness is clear, that's what we radiate to everybody around us. This is why Rumi says the greatest lover is the silent lover, and the greatest teacher is the silent teacher. Because if you're in love within yourself, if you're happy within yourself, if you're clear within yourself, if you're passionate about what you do, everywhere you go, you're broadcasting that out to everybody. And it is the invisible force that awakens people and elevates them, because they're basically picking up on the invisible gift at the intuitive level, because we're all just wired together energetically. We all know what it's like to be in a room with someone who's really grumpy and snotty and nasty. It can pull the whole room right down. Yes. And sometimes we just don't have time to be a mommy or a daddy to people that just have this very, very bad habit of existing that way. The point is we are all very familiar with how quickly stink spreads and affects people. But we seldom realize what happens to that same room of people when we come in a positive state with an open heart and an open mind, how infectious that becomes.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes the heart has to get broken, and we have to be in enough pain to really get clear on what we want to create now based on what we've just learned that the broken heart represents to us. So I think that the whole point is that there's a simple contemplative meditation that it's a lot easier for busy-minded people to do, because it's giving them an anchor and a focus. And you ask the question, what does it mean when Rumi says the function of a broken heart is to let the love pour? And you empty yourself and listen. What do I feel in my body? Function of a broken heart is to let the love pour out. The first thing I feel is constriction around my heart. And then when I say let the love pour out, it's like all of a sudden my heart opens. So there you see the yin, the constriction, the pulling in, and then the yang, the release, like the fire of transformation. My point is I love contemplative meditation because as you know, I've got a library full of very deep and profound books where one sentence can send you into, like a lot of deep introspection. Like, God is the divine mirror. God is the divine mirror. Where would the mirror be? Where would I look? So one contemplative meditation, God is divine, goes to, where would I look? Where is that mirror? Then it might lead you to, well, it's the mirror in my bedroom. It's the mirror in the bathroom. It's my rear view mirror. It's everywhere I go. If God is the mirror and God is ultimately the source of everything, I'm always looking in the mirror. And then you might come to the realization, it's the entire planet. It's all my relationships. Oh my God, it includes the sun, the moon, and the stars. The whole cosmos is God looking in the mirror at itself. Well, then you have to ask yourself, when you look at the mirror in yourself, do you see God or do you see some broken person? Do you see some sad person? Because God says yes to that too. So ultimately, there's a contemplative meditation, and wow, I've done them I remember I wanted to really understand what love is. I probably spent 5 or 6 years doing contemplative meditations to come to a deeper understanding of what love is and to get my soul to guide me to some really good working definitions. I give you an example of what can come from a contemplative meditation. At one point, my soul said to me, love is consciousness becoming aware of itself. There's a new contemplative meditation. Love is consciousness. There's a statement. Love is consciousness becoming aware of itself. Well, how does consciousness become aware of itself? Through relationship.
Yeah.
What's the first relationship you have? With yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How can I prove it? Everybody hold your hand up if you're listening. Look at your hand and tell me, what are you looking at? Most common answer, my hand. That's a possessive. Then who is it that's looking at the hand if it's your hand? If you say, my body, that means that you're in possession of a body. So love is consciousness saying, my hand becoming aware of itself. So the more love you have, the more conscious you are, the more you're aware, my body, my hand. Oh my God, the food that keeps it alive. Oh my God, the relationships that keep it alive. And there you go. And off it goes. The contemplative meditation, just one takes you to the next, to the next, to the next. And
those big spirals. All
of a sudden you wake up and go, what took me so long? Well, just sort of to kind of wrap it up, because you and I, we have the ability to talk about these things.
We got dinner to get to as well. 6:10.
We got dinner, yeah. We got a rattlesnake to bury too.
That's right.
Have you got a name for your new program?
It's a good question. I have not put the name together. We're going to launch midsummer. If people are interested, go to kingsbury.com and just write me there on the email. Hey, I'm interested. Send me more info. We'll get you more info. The event that Connor and I are doing at the end of August at the farm is called The Rising. So therisingretreat.com is the website. I'll make sure that's in there in the show notes. And I'm really excited. I'm still in the cave working on developing this. I think the thing, if I was to put in a nutshell, what have I learned from Fit for Service and what is it that I'm going to deliver? I'm excited to be able to deliver more than just the physical. Yeah. I'm excited to be able to deliver the stuff that has impacted me the most from guys like you, guys like Dr. Will Tagle, guys like Huitzi, Arturo Mata, who passed away, my boxing coach, and all the indigenous elders I've had the fortune of meeting, Chase Iron Eyes and many others, and being able to work with them, to sweat with them and really give these experiences out. We have a beautiful sweat lodge on the farm. We have Waira from Ecuador. She's an incredible female shaman who's done a lot. They've also had a big influence with the Lakota, so they do Sundance and all sorts of cool things all the way down in Ecuador.
Wow.
And she'll come up and pour sweat at our land. We had Bobby Kennedy there, did a sweat with 55 of us packed in like sardines. So These are experiences that I want to be able to give to people. And I won't be the maestro pouring water, during the sweat, but I'll be in there with you, sweating, right? And I might be the guy taking the shot, or one of my brothers, Eric Vaughn, on the land, but we're all going to get our hands in there. I remember having just the word that came to me was intimate. When I was field dressing an animal for the first time in 18-degree weather with snowflakes falling in slow motion. It was one of the most intimate feelings I've ever had. And there's ways in which we can become more intimate with all that we do. Gaffney talks about that. How can I take the map of Eros and apply that to all relationships?
Yeah.
Right. And so those are things that I've navigated towards through my own personal desire. And there are a lot of experiences that we can all share together. So I'm pumped that we have the ability, the place to do it at, and the people to bring in for those experiences. So I'm really excited to continue doing smaller retreats, bringing people together. If people can't afford the retreats, that's all good. We talked about that before, people are uncertain with tariffs and all the shit going on in the world. I want to have low-hanging fruit. My podcast is a way that I teach, but a lot of times I'm quiet on my podcast. I want, the person I brought in to be the expert, to be able to explain things. And I might run a 1 or 2 solo casts a year. It took you 3 weeks or a month to develop Christ, Lucifer, and Armand?
A month,
right? And that's still the
all day, every day for a month.
The greatest podcast you've ever done. 5 hours, a true work of art, right? But fun. It takes a lot. And so I feel like, one of the touch points is going to be being able to communicate with people through the web, through Circle, through different community groups that allows me to have touch points where I can answer questions. I can be direct. And that's some of my favorite ways to teach. I haven't done it for the last 6 years.
If you had to say, categorize who it's for.
Yeah, if I'm going to look at the world, and I've coached men, women, all ages, as you have, and you've done it longer. But I think if we look at, there are several problems in the world, right? You could say plastic's a problem. Them dumping chemicals in the air is a problem, right?
EMFs.
It affects our air water. EMFs is a problem.
Medical
EMFs.
system.
Absolutely. Big pharma's a problem.
Farming system. It's a long list.
I think disconnect is at the core. It's maybe not the core, but it is at the core, this disconnection. And it starts, it can start with the self or it can end with the self, but that disconnect is something we can repair. And when we repair that relationship and become connected, we then see ourselves in all things and become connected to all things. Our connection to nature changes. Our connection to our body changes. Our connection to how we think changes. And so really anyone of all ages who has felt disconnected and has felt like, is there a way to patch me up, to bring the best out of me, to take, a tuning fork to my vessel and bring harmony back to it so that I can be the best person I possibly can. That was the intention of Fit for Service. How can I become fit to serve others?
So it could be a whole family could come into this thing.
Absolutely. And
Kids.
We're working right now. I'm just going to put it out there. There's a prayer being made right now to host a whole family event at the farm with someone close to, if not Leonard Sachs himself. And we're in talks with that right now.
Great.
Right. So let's split the parents up from the kids. Let's go with breath work with just the parents. Let's do the kids, just do breath work, have an altered state for the first time in your life, right? To the degree of which you can, right? Because you got your foot on the gas or the brakes. Let's all sit in a sweat to open up so we actually go through a challenging and transformative thing together and start to harmonize and create co-resonance together. All these experiences can be applied to the family. And my son is 10 years old. He's sat in multiple sweats. All this is available to us. And then we bring in somebody like Leonard Sachs, because the first thing people would tell you or me is, must be nice to have 118 acres. Must be nice that Kyle makes enough money that Tosh can stay at home and raise the kids. And not everyone wants to be a teacher. And all those things are excuses. But the beauty of a guy like Leonard Sachs is not only has he worked with thousands of families from every avenue, from single moms to 2-income parents and everything in between.
Yeah.
He's also a PhD in psychology who's mapped out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Right. And so I can teach that, but who better to teach that than the man himself? And Kim Jong-Pain, he wrote The Soul of Discipline. We're in talks with him as well. So we've had many people through Fit for Service over the years say, you got to do this for the family. And really only in the last year did that even become a possibility. But now that I'm kind of in control of my own destiny, it's right there at the forefront of what I want to create.
And I think too, I've heard that statement, must be nice to have this or must be nice to have that, or, you're this, you're rich or whatever people say. But the reality of it is you and I didn't do anything different than exactly what we teach. We got clear what we wanted. We established clear values, and we committed ourselves to creating the life we wanted to live. You used to live in your mother's house in her garage for
5
years. For 5 years.
With my saint of a wife.
Because that was the only way you could engage your dream of being a professional fighter due to the very small amounts of money you were getting paid. And I've been bankrupt. I've gone for months without a paycheck to make sure my staff got paid. Without a long laundry list, we've both weathered plenty of storms. So if anything, instead of using that as an excuse not to participate, it should be, those are the people that can show me how to do it.
Right.
Because they came from where I'm at and they know the ropes. And that's, I think, the better way to approach that. Otherwise, you just keep on, putting all your time into social media, fake stars, But anyhow, great journey. And I wish you the greatest of success. As I said to you in the sauna, look, there's about 7 billion unhealthy people on the planet right now. And it wouldn't matter if there was 1,000 Paul Cheks and 1,000 more Kyle Kingsburys and 1,000 more of all the Joe Dispenzas in the world. We still got a lot of people to work with that need help. So I think, all of us have enough life experience and love to share and passion for helping humanity and helping the planet. Now's your chance to go out and find the way that just makes you feel like you're making love every day to do it. Because as I always say, a labor of love is sustainable. Anything else is just labor.
Yeah.
And it'll kill you. And I think that's where a lot of people are trapped. They just do what they think they got to do to make money, but they don't realize that you're going to spend a lot of that money on dealing with all your physical, emotional, and mental challenges, which are really the soul saying, hey, wake up, because you're not living. That's not love. That's not passion. That's just a story you've been taught to tell yourself. And it doesn't end up any better than anyone else that's been telling that story. That's why I often quote Abraham Lincoln, who said the best way to help the poor is not to become one of them. They don't need more money. They need education, or they'll always have their hands out. You got to teach people how to be abundant. You got to teach people how to, take care of themselves. And that's ultimately what real freedom is. And I think what you're really doing is teaching people freedom.
Yeah.
Not only freedom for them, but freedom for life, for everybody involved, for every creature involved, even the soil. I don't think there's a better mission to have. So I hope it blows through the roof for you.
I hope so too.
I hope your biggest problem is staffing.
Well, I've got some good people to work with if that becomes a problem. We've had such an amazing team at FFS that I can call on my brothers and sisters from the last 6 years, and they've done great work.
Awesome.
So, thank you for having me, Paul. I love you. Let's bury this snake.
Yeah, we got to go bury a snake. And thanks, guys, for joining us. I hope you enjoyed our dialogue and found inspiration in it. And maybe for you, it might not have been inspiration, but it was reinforcement that you are doing the right things in your life. So congratulations if that's the case. Congratulations if you're inspired. Thank you to my beautiful sponsors for all your amazing products. They are helping us be healthy, and they're putting money in the hands of regenerative farmers and organic farmers and biodynamic farmers. So as you've heard me say over and over again, it's a big win-win-win. The earth wins, our sponsors win, you win, and a little goes to the podcast to help support the podcast. So that's a 4-way win. So anything you buy from the sponsors is supporting all of us. And thanks to each of you for being the change, no matter how far down you feel or how tough it seems to you. Remember, Lao Tzu said, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So the secret is just keep putting one foot in front of the other and let your heart lead you in the right direction. And that's why I say use your heart to feel what you know, and you'll be okay. So aho, great spirit. It is done. It is done. It is done. See you soon, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek and today's guest, Kyle Kingsbury. If you'd like to spend a full 5 days with Kyle to reconnect with your body, your food, and your purpose, then check out The Rising Retreat at therisingretreat.com, where you can save $500 using the promo code Chek10. That's therisingretreat.com, and the promo code is CHEK10. You can also connect with Kyle on Instagram at Kyle Kingsbury and on X at Kingsbury, or get on the waitlist for his forthcoming community at kylekingsbury.kit.com/community. And make sure you listen and subscribe to the Kyle Kingsbury podcast at kingsbury.com. That's KINGSBU.com. For more interaction with Paul and to share ideas and ask questions about the topics discussed in this podcast, we invite you to join his Spirit Gym program and community. There are 3 different levels of membership to fit your budget and lifestyle, where you can participate in live Q&A sessions with podcast guests, access the members forum within the Spirit Gym community, where you can chat with other members, attend weekly virtual meetups with Paul, and study the comprehensive Master Key online program. Explore the options and subscribe today by going to myspiritgym.com. And finally, if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a warm review on the podcast platform of your choice. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and YouTube.